Good afternoon. Thank you for joining us. Welcome to the industry update put on by the Nebraska Tourism Commission. Today is our December update that we're going to be filling you in on some exciting things, and we have some guest speakers to share with you some information that was presented at our conference, and it was requested to be shown again because we think it's very important and affects all of us across the state on events that you may put on. So today we're going to talk about how to create wine and beer tasting events and the important things and permits and the other things you need to think about when doing that. We will also be sharing about the upcoming events for Nebraska Tourism, and I will share those at the end. At this time, at the bottom of your screen, you'll see Jen Jurdy's email address. During the presentation, if you have questions that come up while you are viewing and you might have an event in mind that spurs a question on your particular event, go ahead and send it in to Jen, and we will ask the panelists our questions at the end of the webinar, and so feel free to do that at any point in time during the webinar. Today you have myself, and I am Lisa Karnitz. I'm a business development consultant for the Nebraska Tourism Commission. If you ever need to get a hold of me or contact me, my phone number is there and also my email. Jen is behind the laptop over here, and she's taking questions, and she is our public information officer, and there is her phone number and also her email as well. So today we're going to cover a taste of success, and I'm going to turn this over to two individuals, and they will be talking about creating wine and beer tasting events in Nebraska, and it is Lori Paulsen and Nathan Hoeft, and they will be introducing themselves. So welcome.
Thank you. Hello everybody. Lori and I are here to talk about how to create great wine and beer tasting events and how to incorporate them into any event you might already have. This is Lori.
Hi, I'm Lori Paulsen. I'm the Executive Director for the Nebraska Winery and Grape Growers Association. I have been involved in associations and agribusiness throughout the state over my career, and I'm excited to be a part of the Nebraska grape growing industry and the wine that results from that. I'm active with Wine America, which is like a national association for people that do what I do, and what that gives me is an opportunity to borrow ideas from other kinds of events like this from throughout the country. I'm also a Nebraska Lead Fellow, which is an ag leadership organization, and proud to be a native Nebraskan.
I am Nathan Hoeft. I am the owner and brewmaster at Street Brewing Company in Hastings, Nebraska. A member of the marketing committee for the Nebraska Craft Brewers Guild, and just happy to be here to talk about how you can incorporate beer into your events. Right now, starting with wine.
So wineries in the state, a lot of people are asking about how many wineries are in the state. Right now we have 31 active farm wineries. Farm wineries normally are going to have a vineyard associated with them, have the winery on site, and then also have a tasting room. There are 2 or 3 more that will probably come online during 2017. And there are about 10 tasting rooms that don't have wineries but do serve Nebraska-specific wines. Our industry has about $150.8 million in economic impact on the state, and that includes creating about 1,000 jobs and lots of agritourism. The Nebraska Wine Passport, some folks will be familiar with that. That program is designed to bring tourists throughout the state to visit wineries and tasting rooms, and that has a map of wineries and prizes that go along with that. We were created with the Nebraska Farm Winery Act about 24 years ago. That specifically incentivizes Nebraska farm wineries to be a part of our economic development, and the act really makes sure that 75% of all the Nebraska wines have Nebraska products. So that's Nebraska grapes. A lot of people are surprised to hear that grapes will grow in Nebraska and thrive. One key part of that is the Nebraska Wine and Grape Growers Association. We have about 100 grape growers in the state that are growing for all of the wineries, and you can find out more about our industry at nebraskawines.com. If you ever need to contact me, feel free to go to Nebraska Wines. I am the sole employee, so when you send an email or make a phone call, you'll always get me.
Nice. Oh,
There we go.
Currently in Nebraska, we have about 43 licensed craft breweries, about another 8 to 10 currently in planning. It took 80 years for us to reach to over 2,000 breweries in the United States, which was the number we had pre-prohibition. Right now in Nebraska, craft beer makes up only about 3% of the market, so we have a long way to grow. But as you can see, the average American consumer now lives within 10 miles of his or her craft brewery, so there's a lot of opportunity to drink local. With the growth of the Nebraska craft brewing, we also have growth in need for our hops and malts, so we're starting to see growth in that industry as well. The Nebraska craft brewers are represented by our guild, and then we also have the Nebraska Hop Growers Association, where they're growing hops for us.
So we get questions all the time about how to put together a wine tasting event or a local festival, or how do we leverage a current event such as a county fair or Nebraska Land Days into making that a tasting event for either wine, beer, or both. So I wanted to start off by talking a little bit about the kinds of other festivals that are in the state. And the reason I mention these is if at any point you want to hear more detail about that, again, you can find me at nebraskawines.com. But it's a great way to find out how other events are put together. So Toast Nebraska is probably the premier. We've had that for 2017, will be 4 years. It usually has about 3,000 or so visitors and has 20 wineries, each having their own tent. It's an unlimited tasting event, which is great if you love wine. But what that means is that the attendees pay a set amount to come in. Regular tickets are $40, advanced tickets or VIP tickets are $60, and you get to sample all of the wines. 130 wines to drink. So, and those we do half-ounce pours. So that is at Mahoney State Park, and great venue for that. We have other vendors there, and there's food and music, and that's probably one of the kind of premier wine events in the state. Nebraska Balloon Wine Festival has been going on for a long time. That event is specific, started out specific to Nebraska wine and now has expanded. There's beer and wine, and there's hot air balloons, and that's in Omaha, and usually the first week of August. Draws 8,000 to 10,000 visitors. And they do ticketed, so every sample you try is one of your tickets. Kearney Jazz Wine, they've had that for a number of years also. It's an indoor event. But again, the winery is set up. They have a chance to sample all the wines. There's also, I think, some craft brews at that event. Has jazz music, and it's a fundraiser for the Kearney Community Foundation. So that's just another example. Lots of county fairs are now doing tasting events because it draws people that might not normally come to a county fair. We have a couple county fairs that get anywhere from 600 to 1,000 people at their wine tasting events. So if you are working with a county fair, it can be a great way to attract visitors to that event. And normally that's for a couple hours, one night during the county fair. So again, there's more detail on that later on. And then tastings is part of larger festivals. Nebraska Land Days has a wine tasting as part of their event. There's other festivals that also do that. Just a way to create a few more sponsorship opportunities, additional revenue, and diversify the activities at those. And then there's standalone tasting events. There will be counties that will do their own wine tasting event.
Yeah, and then with beer tastings, again, same thing, participation in festivals. You're starting to see that more and more where they're incorporating local beers as part of the flavor of what you can find at a county festival. We have a lot of other great beer-centric festivals like the Great Nebraska Beer Festival in the Omaha area. Draws a large crowd. I don't know the exact number, but it's usually a fun event. Do the Brew is one that's particularly close to my heart because it happens in Hastings, Nebraska, and it's used as a fundraiser for our Arts Council. Always happy to host that. The Liederkranz Beer and Sausage Festival is a fun one in Grand Island where it's actually, beer and sausage. And so there's great entertainment, great food, great beer, a great outdoor event. And And then we have Omaha Beer Fest, and then Extreme Beer Fest. It's a part of that where it gets into more specific styles of beer. There's a lot of opportunity to pull from your local brewery and bring them into your events and make them a part of what draws people to your events. There's like beer tourism is an actual thing now. People are traveling to check out the different flavors available in the different areas of Nebraska.
Great. So as we start talking about some more of the specifics about creating a successful tasting event, regardless if it's a small standalone or if it's a huge festival, the first bullet here is the most important.
Time.
And that's having plenty of time to plan that. We suggest 3 to 6 months. So if you're planning a June event right now, the time to start planning that is now.
Yeah, absolutely. And I mean, more towards the 6-month side of things, because there are a lot of factors in planning an event, and there's a lot of communication that has to happen with everybody involved.
Sure. We had a winery get called last week and said, we'd love to have you at our tasting event, and they started asking a little more about it. When is the event? It'll be this next week. If you're calling a week before the tasting event, it's probably impossible to get a winery there. But more importantly, when you call a winery to talk to them or talk to a brewery to see if they want to be a part of it, if you don't have those details figured out, it's difficult for them to figure out if it's going to fit into their plan for their organization. So time. We talk about this a lot. You'll see it throughout the presentation, but it is what will help you to be successful.
Absolutely. Especially, a lot of breweries, and I think wineries too these days, are starting to plan their events at the very beginning of the year. And once they have that schedule set, they will not deviate much from that. It makes for an easier plan for the rest of the year, because besides doing events, we're also brewing beer. And that's not a process that halts when we're at a festival.
Right. And most of our wineries are looking at their whole calendar starting here in January.
Yep.
So this is a great time to start planning those. So timely on the webinar, but start planning now.
Yeah.
The next item is venue. I've seen all kinds of tasting events, and I think the ones that are least successful is where you have a large room or maybe an outdoor area, and all of the tables and all the tastings are all kind of in a row, and everyone just starts on this end of the line and gets their sample and goes to the next one. And what happens is you don't get to talk to the brewery folks or to the wineries. Most of the time, the people that brew the beer and make the wine are there.
Yep.
In our case, oftentimes that's the guy that's pruning the grapes and making the wine. So room to roam when you're looking at a venue is really important, so that they can sit, visit with the winemaker or a brewery, go to the next one, kind of mill around. It creates a very different feel and experience.
A more festive experience.
Yeah, absolutely.
Room to roam. It gives you the opportunity to talk with people, and if there's a little more separation between where the breweries or wineries are set up, it gives us an opportunity to maybe take a minute and talk to the people that we're serving, rather than just constantly serving.
Right.
We're there to talk about our product. We're passionate about it and want to tell you about it. So give us the opportunity.
In most cases, the hope is that relationship that you develop is going to turn into a visit to your brewery or to the wineries. This is a great chance for them to create that relationship, so they want to come and visit you again.
Absolutely.
A lot of our events in the summer, and that's when most of the events are held, between, I would say, early May until the end of October, are outdoor events. I should mention most of them are used to having some sort of covering. And so think about that when you're looking at your venue. We have Toast Nebraska, which I mentioned. That's tents. It's outdoor, and there's no indoor alternative. So we're used to that, but making a winery or a brewery stand outside, in the sun with a table pouring beer and wine, usually you'll need a covering of some sort to make that attractive to them.
Yes.
Licensure. This is the hard part. We'll make it easy for you, and we're going to reference a couple of websites in a little bit. But licensure is important. Anytime alcohol is consumed in the state of Nebraska and there's money associated with it, you have to have licensure. And licensure means a special designated license through the Nebraska Liquor Control Commission. This is a step that we've seen a lot of organizations either kind of skip over or figure it all work out.
Right.
And it doesn't.
And again, that takes time. The great thing is that the Nebraska Liquor Control Commission is full of very helpful people. They have a wonderful website that's very easy to access and very easy to navigate. And if you ever have a question about it, it's easy to call them and get someone on the phone and talk about what you're trying to do.
Right.
They are there to help.
But you will need a license. So someone will say, well, I'm having at the county fairgrounds, I'll use their license. And that's partially true, but some of it isn't true. So we'll talk about the more specifics a little later in the presentation.
Absolutely.
Yep.
One thing that we'll talk more about is tastings, whether it should be unlimited or ticketed. Unlimited doesn't mean as all you can drink at once, but is it a single ticket price where you come in and then your tastings are included within that, or is it a ticketed event where one ticket will get you a certain size of pour, and then another one may get you a full glass.
Mm-hmm.
There's a little more control in that environment over how much people are drinking, but there's opportunities in both versions of a tasting.
Right. A lot of times we'll see events where you get 10 tickets and a glass when you walk in, and that includes entertainment and access to the wineries and breweries. So you might maybe 5 tickets is 1 glass of wine, or you can do 10 tastings. So there's different ways to do that. Then there's other events where maybe the cost is a little higher, but it allows you to sample everything.
Yep.
But you also, and we'll talk more about that here in a moment, but food is an important part of that because you want to make sure everyone's safe.
Yep, absolutely.
So reimbursement for tastings. Someone said, well, this is great promotion. There's no need to reimburse for tastings. Wineries will generally not come to an event to do tastings unless they're reimbursed for those. And generally the rule is between 50 cents and $1, depending, per tasting. So if you're doing tickets, it's easy to find, to figure that out. What would happen is I'm an attendee, I come to these 3 vendors, I try their wines, and then I decide I'm going to try a glass. And so they collect those tickets, and at the end of the night, their organizers will count those tickets and reimburse based on those tickets.
Yeah.
So that's kind of how those reimbursement for tastings works.
Hasn't necessarily worked that way for breweries. 'Cause
Right.
most of the time our events are the unlimited version.
Yep.
Where you come in and the tastings are included. But more and more, it's not about just exposure. As I said, beer tourism is an actual thing. People are driving over 200 miles to try the beer at a brewery. So they will come just because the brewery is part of the event. So more and more you see we're looking for reimbursement for the beer that we're bringing. Even if you're paying for the beer, you're going to make money on the event.
Absolutely.
Yeah, there's still opportunity for it.
Entertainment, most events, the longer people stay, the more they'll enjoy the event, and it'll allow you to sell tickets for a larger amount of time. And because entertainment can be really important, we have at a number of ours, we'll do something more acoustic in the afternoon if we're doing an all-day event, and then something a little more jumpy
In the evening?
in the evening, more for dancing and merriment. So different audiences will come for different parts of the day.
And I know we'll talk about it later, but I think one of the points that I liked that you made when we originally made this presentation is that it's great to stop serving an hour before the end of the event so people can just relax and enjoy the entertainment, and then having the entertainment there for them to enjoy.
Right, and that also gives you a little bit of time. Your wineries or brewers will probably start breaking down, but they'll be able to enjoy that entertainment for a little bit longer. Also, it's a great time to pass out bottled water during that event, to have that available. Again, these are people who are drinking that are going to head home, and you want them to be safe. So, and then wine and beer for sale. For us, that's really important. For wineries, they sell a lot of wine at these events. And by sell a lot, I mean bottles that someone might drink at the event, and what will usually happen is the winery will say, are you going to enjoy this here or take it home? And they'll say, I'm going to enjoy it here. So they'll pop the cork on it for you. And then you can go sit and watch the sunset and drink some wine. Or they'll take some home with them. There are wineries that don't distribute wine at grocery stores and bottle shops throughout the state, but rather you can only get it at their winery or at these events. So it becomes more attractive. Oh, I need to make sure and pick up my Mexican Panku at the event because I can't buy it at a grocery store. So for wineries, they like to have the ability to either sell, either a wine store that the organization puts together where they just go and buy it all in one spot, or a lot of them will do wine sales in their booth. So when you're tasting it, oh, I love this, I'll buy a bottle of that. That takes different licensure. We'll talk in a minute about that.
Yeah, not so much of that is done with for breweries. I have seen it at 1 or 2 events, but it is not a common thing as of yet.
Right.
I don't know if that's something that will grow.
We'll see where you go.
Yeah. Glassware, there's a lot of different things you can do for glassware, especially if it's a mixed event where you have both beer and wine.
Right.
Well, I think we'll get more into that as we go on in the presentation, but glassware is important, especially in keeping track of how you're pouring. There's also sponsorship opportunities with glassware.
And most wineries expect that you're going to provide a glass.
Yeah.
A glass that is not a solo cup.
Yes.
And because wine tastes different out of glassware rather than out of plasticware. And again, most people see that as a great memento or souvenir to take with them at the end of the event. Some people will have dozens
Whole
of these.
collection.
Right, right. But it's a great chance for you to have a souvenir, for people to remember your event throughout the year, and gives everyone a chance to, again, sell sponsorship. So
Yep.
more revenue.
There's more than one side to a glass, so you have the event name on one side and easily put a sponsorship on the other.
Absolutely.
Yeah. So what wineries and breweries expect, obviously a table for us to set our product up on, very important.
And generally we love it if we can get a back table too to store wine up off the floor.
Right.
When there's outdoor events and there could be rain, the worst thing in the world, and I've seen it happen, is you put a box of wine on the ground, it gets wet, you go to pick up the box, and the whole bottom pulls out and your wine goes everywhere. And that's alcohol abuse as I'm concerned. So
Absolutely.
we really like to have a space to put that up. If we know that you're not going to provide a table, a lot of people will bring a little pallet or half pallet and they'll just box their wine on top of that. But a table or two is great. Some events will put 2 wineries at the same table. We don't love that because we want to just spend that time with the guests. But in a pinch, that's something that would work.
Well, that goes again to the room to roam idea.
Absolutely. Good point.
Giving space between so that those individual conversations can happen. For breweries, when it comes to the tables, having a second table is very nice, especially if you're allowing us to do any kind of merch at the event as well, or if we have giveaways that we want to bring.
Right.
It gives us a place to put things as well, besides the beer itself. Otherwise, ice/water for tasting. Obviously, we need the ice for our coolers that we're serving out of.
Right.
You guys need them to keep your bottles cold.
Yep.
And then water for tasting. There's kind of dual for the water. It helps us to have water for to be able to clean out glasses.
Yep, we do the same.
And then
thing.
also, if somebody needs a break from either the beer or wine that they're drinking, it's great to have that available.
Yeah, and generally, depending on the heat of the day, wineries are just going to expect you to have ice there, especially if it's more than a 2-hour event. Sometimes they'll bring a cooler, and then you just bring the ice, and they'll fill it up and keep it going. But ice and water are important, and the glasses for the tasting, which we've talked about.
Yep. Reimbursement for tastings we've talked about. Ability to sell product.
Right.
We've actually got a lot of this here. Yeah.
Yep.
SDL. We're going to emphasize that over and over again. Talk to the Liquor Control Commission early on for any event you're going to do. You need that SDL. Promotion of event. I think the biggest thing about the promotion of event is include us. Talk to us about how you would like to promote the event, and then give us the opportunity to help you do it. We have entire audiences that we talk to basically every week.
Right.
We all have lists of people that follow us. We have Facebook profiles. We have Instagram profiles. And we're talking to them every week, so hopefully they're paying attention. And we'd love to help you promote your event, especially if we're participating in it.
A lot of wineries and breweries will have their own kind of groupies that will follow
Absolutely.
them around wherever they go. So they will check where your brewery will be, and they will come to those events. A lot of our wineries, if you have 12 wineries and breweries at an event, and everyone has great social media presence, think of how that's going to expand your marketing.
Absolutely.
And we do a lot of our wineries will do, if you share this, they'll do a drawing for a bottle of wine or something like that. So those are great promotional things that you can put together with the wineries and the breweries.
Yeah, I mean, if you give each brewery that participates or winery that participates a couple of tickets that we can then use as part of a giveaway, that it's a great opportunity for us to reach out and be like, hey, we'd love to have you at this event. Why don't you share this with people you know, and maybe we'll get you a ticket.
Right. And then that communication with the breweries and wineries is so important. They want to know how many people to expect. So when you're close to an event, we expect to know how many people. Now, even when you make that initial call, knowing about how many people might be coming, are you planning for 100? Are you planning for 1,000? The big difference there is that will influence how much staff they're going to bring, whether or not that works with the schedule. There's other events going on all the time. So they're going to decide if that's going to make sense. Also, they're going to want to know, are they going to be able to sell product on site? That will influence whether or not they're able to attend the event. So those are all pieces that are important.
Timeline for getting an event, event details. I think you just sort of spoke to this. Who will attend, what, where, when. Again, communicate that to us, and we can help.
And before you even make a call, you're going to need to know who you plan to have come. Are you expecting the county, the state, just your little town, the chamber? What is it? Will there be other vendors there? Will there be wine and beer there? Where will it be? Is it an indoor event, an outdoor event? What are the hours of your event? All of these details are important as we put together that list of are we going to attend or not. And so before you even make that call, you need to have those kinds of things nailed down.
Yep. We've spoken about this before. Tasting procedures. Is it a ticketed event? Is it an open pour event? But we haven't mentioned about who will pour. Will it be the brewery or the winery themselves? Will you have
kind of volunteer pours?
Volunteer pour. Yeah. That can affect how the SDLs are done.
Right, exactly.
Yeah.
And how are you going to do the reimbursement? Wineries would like to know when they're going to get that check. We all want to know when we're going to get paid, right? So they're going to want to know, are they going to get paid out that night? It's hard to do that.
Yeah.
They're okay if you say we'll have the check to you 7 to 10 days after the event. That way you can sort through the tickets if you're doing it in that way. How will the event be marketed, and what do the organizers of the event want the wineries and breweries to do?
Yeah, I mean, what is the message of the event? Is it for a particular charity? Is it for a particular fund? Or is it just a fun event? Either way, we'd like to know how you'd like it to be spoken to. I mean, what should we be saying about this event and our participation in it?
Exactly. You want to allow, we said before, don't start making those calls until you know what you plan to do. It's because they'll just say, call me back when you know.
Yep.
So make that, and also, and I mentioned this later too, but when is the best time to contact a winery or brewery? Most of our wineries are open Thursday, Friday, Saturday, Sunday. So I would not call them between about 1 and 9 on those days because they're going to be busy with customers. However, a lot of wineries will be closed on Mondays.
Yep.
Because they're just not doing anything that day. I mean, that's their day off, kind of. So Wednesdays is kind of the sweet spot for us.
It's the same for us. Wednesdays are a great day because we've worked the whole weekend with the tap room, and then usually at the beginning of the week we start planning our brew schedule and start implementing that schedule. So. And
wineries normally are not answering the phone at 7:30, 8 o'clock in the morning.
No.
Because they're later night people. Because they're doing, they're at tasting events and those kinds of things. So those are good little reminders on when to contact them. As we said before, a minimum is 90 days, ideally 6 months. You will never say, gosh, I wish we would have done this closer to the event.
Yeah.
And part of it is because that special designated license, or your liquor licensing, will take 1 to 3 months at a county level. You can't even go to the state to your county to approve it. And they say 2 weeks for state. I will tell you right now,
Minimum.
that's a minimum. And there are changes happening at liquor control. There are state budget issues. We don't know if that timeline might expand. So 2 weeks is great, but we never know if it might be longer than that.
Plan on doing it well before that.
Yeah. So here's the, keep saying, we're going to talk about it. Now we talk about SDL is a special designated license. Nebraska Liquor Control, along with cooperation of their local governing bodies, will issue these. You need one anytime alcohol is served, money is exchanging hands, and it's advertised to the public. So someone will say, well, I'm having it, but I'm just sending out stuff on social media. That's advertised to the public.
Yep.
And that a lot of times folks will look at ways to get around having to have an SDL. The only time you wouldn't need an SDL is if you never advertised it, put it on social media, didn't charge any money, and you had it in your own home.
Yeah.
There's very few events that you can really have as a community builder or, fundraiser.
I would just always plan on getting one if it's a public event of any kind.
You have to, yeah.
Where you're going to have alcohol served.
And I've been asked, well, will someone come to my event and check to see if we have SDLs? And the answer is absolutely yes.
Absolutely.
They will be there. And they will ask if you have individual wineries that have SDLs, they'll want to see theirs, and they'll see one for the organizing group.
Yep. Same with the breweries, and they're often checking how the beer is coming into the event. Did it go through a distributor? Is it being brought directly? There's a lot of concerns, and they come around and check everything. Who can apply for an SDL and how? Currently, nonprofit associations and anybody holding a retail liquor license can apply for an SDL. This may change with things occurring at the Liquor Control Commission in the next year.
But for right now, you can apply if you're a nonprofit, or if you have, like a winery or brewery would have one. Probably, let's say you might have someone that has a liquor store in town that is willing to use their license for your event. That can happen, and they can apply for that SDL too. But even with that, they will need to apply for an SDL for that special event.
Right.
And you can go to the LCC, which is the Liquor Control Commission, Nebraska.gov, to find that application. As we said before, you have to apply to your local government, and someone will say, well, which one? Well, it depends by the county.
Yep.
Some, like in Lincoln, you would apply to Lincoln, and that would take care of your county. In some areas, it's just the county. So you just need to contact your local governing body. So the question is, when do I need this? Who do I get it as an organizer, or do the individual wineries get it? And I will tell you, this has changed. Here's how it works today, according to Liquor Control. If you are selling, or if you are doing sampling of wines outside of your own winery, you have to have an SDL. That has changed in the last 4 months from what it was before. In the past, if you didn't sell it in your booth, let's say at a little wine store, if you didn't sell it in your booth, you didn't have to have an SDL. And now you have to have an SDL. And as a winery, you're limited to 12 without special permission. So events are going to have to get creative so that they can encourage wineries to come to these events. A winery wouldn't have to have an SDL if the organizers has a volunteer who pours in that booth. So I'm the winery, I'm going to talk about my product, I'm going to have brochures, I might even be selling or talking to everyone who comes by my booth, but I won't actually touch the wine. Your volunteers would.
And that definitely makes it a lot more appealing. As she said, we only allowed 12 SDLs per year. Mm-hmm. So if you are able to have the SDL yourself and then have volunteers pouring, it makes it very easy for us to participate. And at the same time, that's a great opportunity for us to have a conversation with the people who are interested in our product. Instead of us standing behind the jockey box or the bottles and pouring, we actually get to stop and talk to them about what we're doing with our beer, what the flavor profiles are, and just what we're trying to do as a company.
So if a winery has to get an SDL at an event, like at Toast Nebraska, we'll continue to get those because our wineries will, there's 20 wineries, the organizers don't have enough staff to do that. Plus they would want one because they want to sell it in their booth.
Right.
So that's the other reason to have an SDL. So I'm going to go back here for a second. Again, all of the detail on this is at that website for lccnebraska.gov. If you need help with any of that, you can always contact me or directly to Liquor Control. So here's some event do's and don'ts. Seems simple and you think you got to figure it out. Make sure you have a procedure to ensure that you have everyone who's drinking alcohol is legally of age. And that will be on the SDL. When you look at the license, they will want to know how you're going to do that. Are you going to do wristbands? And I would suggest wristbands in most cases.
I think wristbands are probably the most effective way that I've seen. It just lets every person, like every time a brewery sees someone walk up, it's very easy to look at their wrist and know, okay, this person I can serve.
Right.
It makes me feel a lot safer at the event in terms of, doling out our product.
Right. Offer food, and by food I don't mean you're going to give it away. You're going to have other vendors there that will sell food, and you can charge for that booth for them. You can say, I'm going to have 5 food vendors, that's it. I'm going to charge them each $250 to be there, and for a 2-day event, and so you have an income generator as an event. Also, people have that food in their tummy, and that's
something to balance out the tastings.
Exactly. So on your SDL, it'll be clear that you have to have an ounce or less on wine tastings. If you're doing unlimited tastings, I suggest a half-ounce pour. That'll be more attractive to wineries, but it's also, if you're trying 15, 20, 30 different wines and you're drinking an ounce, that's like 4 glasses of wine. Very quickly. The other thing is on beer, it's 2 ounces.
2 ounces for beer is what you typically see at any tasting event. I have seen a few where it is a ticketed event, and that's really kind of nice because you can have tickets that are for a 2 ounce pour, or if somebody finds something that they really like, they're done kind of making the rounds, they have a ticket that will allow them to get a full glass and just sit down and enjoy it.
Great point. And I was asked recently, how do you make sure it's 1 ounce? We usually use posi pours for wineries. You can get them in half ounce and 1 ounce. They're a pain, but that way you know everyone's getting that amount. I've also been to tastings where on the glass, when you imprinted it with the logo, you put a 1 ounce and a 2 ounce line in the design so that now you can always over pour either way. But that's the most effective way for beers. If there's a line marking somewhere on the glass that says this is 2 ounces, that's very important, especially if you have volunteers pouring. Great point.
We need them to know that this is where you stop, because, like we said, the Liquor Control Commission will be there and they will check out how people are pouring.
Right, and they're going to ask you how did you determine that. And they're not going to come up and say, hey, I'm from the Nebraska Liquor Control. They're going to come in blind, and you wouldn't want, and you have liability. If you're the one holding the SDL and your people are pouring, the organization has the liability.
Exactly.
Decide the details before applying for that SDL. In fact, that's probably the first step I would do is pull that SDL out and figure out all the details that need to be covered in there. They're going to know, do you have double fencing? Do you have emergency exits? Are there enough bathrooms? All those pieces.
And again, everything that you determine for the SDL are going to be the exact same questions a winery or brewery is going to ask you.
Right.
So having that determined before you approach us, it just makes it easier all the way around.
So one of the other do's we want to talk about is how many wineries or breweries is ideal? And someone will say, well, more is better. Well, not always. 25 wineries and 25 breweries, not everyone's going to have a great experience with it, each person. Plus, that's a lot of wine and beer to be consumed.
Exactly.
So sometimes we say in that 5 to 10 range is a great number depending on how many people are there. If you have 2,000 people there, having 20 wineries is fine. If you have 400 people there, you can have less wineries, and sometimes they will sell more because they'll have less.
Well, and more often than not, any winery or brewery is bringing more than one product.
Absolutely.
So they're going to want to taste more than one thing at each booth. So there's a lot of opportunity for tasting, even if you only have 10 wineries or 10 breweries.
Most wineries expect to bring 3 to 5 different wines at an event. If you have a VIP ticket, sometimes that means they're going to have a special wine. Maybe it's a fortified or a sparkling, and just the people that have the right wristbands for the VIP ticket, which is a higher amount, will
Right.
get to taste those.
And that's something we haven't talked about, but the VIP ticket is a great idea.
Yep.
It's an opportunity to do a different sale. I've seen it done where with a VIP ticket, the group is able to come in an hour ahead of everyone else, and during that hour, it is an open pour, and then afterwards, it's a ticketed situation.
Or there might be a tent that has food just for those folks during certain hours.
Right.
Which sometimes people think, oh, then I don't have to go to the hot dog stand or whatever, and I get to try the those
Yeah.
foods. And then sometimes those are paired with wines or beers, and can be a neat experience too.
Absolutely.
Solicit
Soliciting.
sponsors. That means revenue for you as an organization, and we understand that most people are doing these things not just to generate visitors to the event, but also to hopefully create some revenue.
Yeah.
And that can be anywhere from sponsoring the stage, or a wine bag, or the glasses. It could be any of those things.
Oh yeah, or just even helping with the marketing, sponsoring whether it's the sheets that are giving the information out, or just any one of those. You can incorporate other sponsors as well.
Sometimes media sponsors are the easiest to find. They're willing to give you airtime if you give them tickets to give away on air. So that's great for radio, sometimes for TV. Some print sponsors will work with you on that.
Yep.
So a few checklist items. The goals of the event, you need to figure out what your goals are for the event.
And we hadn't spoken to this, but when we were talking about limiting the number of wineries or breweries, is it a Nebraska only event? Is it all Nebraska wine? Is it all Nebraska beer? We particularly like those because when we go to them, we know each other, we're going to help promote each other. It becomes somewhat familial,
Absolutely it is.
I mean,
Yeah,
it's-
we like it too. Our wineries like to go to events that are Nebraska specific.
Yeah, it gives us an opportunity to say, oh, you like this one of mine? Well, you should go check out my buddy over here, because we are all friends. We're all in the same industry and trying to grow.
Right. You want to determine those details of the events that we've mentioned, securing the venue, and by that we mean parking. And if you're going to park in a field, what if it rains? And how are you going to control the crowd? And how are you going to get everyone out of there at the end of the night? And do you have enough restrooms?
Oh, and again, to the idea of having room to roam, what is the flow of a person coming into the event? How do they get to each area, and then how do they eventually exit?
Right. And seating is another area that we haven't really talked about, but you can be creative about that. There's a number of outdoor events that we work with where they just take hay bales and a piece of burlap, and they just secure that to the bottom of the bale, set it down. They've rented those from farmers, and that makes a great spot to sit. It's low to the ground, fall off that, hopefully you're good, but it also creates an environment there. Tables and chairs can be good. High tops are great.
High tops are great because as they're walking around, they might want to take a minute. They can set something down. If they've stopped at your food vendors, they have a place to set a plate and actually enjoy the meal. That's great. Hours of event. How long are you going? And that determines a lot, just because
Right.
How much are people going to be drinking at the event?
Right. And if you're going to have a 4-hour event and people are buying 10 tickets, sometimes they'll think, well, I'm done here in 20 minutes.
Yeah.
So that if there's no entertainment or food, not as much as and some groups will do as a fundraiser a silent auction, other things to create some revenue at that event.
Yep. Again, start the SDL process as soon as you know you're doing the event.
Right.
All of the information is available on their website, and they are amazingly helpful people. They will walk you through whatever you need to know.
Right. They really want to help, but remember, we're heading into the holidays. Not everyone's there all the time, so good to get out there soon. Figure out who's going to pour. Is it going to be the wineries? If so, they're going to need to apply for those SDLs, so you're going to have to apply for one for your event as a whole. And then on food, if you're doing food for the whole group, let's say you're going to do cheese from Nebraska from 4 different folks. You want to really do that Nebraska theme. Are you going to use a caterer for that? What's the serveware you'll need? Volunteers. I think a lot of groups overlook the need for volunteers.
Yeah, and with volunteers for a lot of different aspects of the event. I think one of the things you said last time we presented was having a volunteer that is designated to 2 or 3 booths to help out with whatever the brewery or winery may need, whether it's ice, whether it's cleanup.
Removing bottles, maybe something gets broken. Wine bottles get broken at these events, so all of those little pieces are important. But also, who's going to man the doors? Who's going to watch who's going to make sure people come in and out okay, who's going to manage parking.
Yeah.
Lots of aspects.
And then, of course, entertainment. Always good to have, whether it's a band, whether it's comedy, I don't know. There's lots
Yeah,
of
it could be
opportunity.
anything. Juggling.
Yeah.
You never know. So a couple other checklist items. Contacting those wineries and breweries, don't send an email. Because it's so easy for a winery just to go, I'll deal with that later. But if you call, it makes a big difference.
And it's much more personal that
Yeah.
way.
We do things, I mean, our whole business is about relationships.
Yeah.
So
Well,
make
and
the phone call.
if it's a Nebraska event, we're Nebraska Wine and Beer. I mean, we want to be a
Right.
part of what's happening in our state.
Yep. So you want to solicit sponsors. You want to order those glasses. Most glasses are going to take 4 to 6 weeks on the kind of long end. Some places you can get them in 2 weeks, but plan for 4 to 6 weeks.
Mm-hmm.
And most time attendees are going to keep those glasses.
Yep. Bags to increase store sales. That's really
That's a
more for
wine
you
thing,
guys.
yeah. So if you want to make sure, if you're going to run the wine store and you are going to get maybe $2 off of every bottle, then give them a wine bag.
Mm-hmm.
Usually those are about $1 a piece. They usually have dividers for 6 bottles, and it's a great way to generate more wine sales in that wine store.
Yep. Ticket registration plan, whether you're going to be selling the tickets online or directly, have that in place pretty early on so you know what you're doing. Marketing plan, again, include us. We would love to promote the event, especially if we're going to be there. Volunteer needs, we just sort of spoke to
Yep.
that. There's a lot of different areas.
Yep.
And then again, communication, communication, communication.
And there we go.
Communication again.
Also, that setup aspect, that communicating how the setup will work is important.
Oh, absolutely.
A lot of times what we say is you want to say that the event starts at, let's say it starts at 4 o'clock. Everyone needs to set up by 2. And by setup we mean all the vehicles exited from the area, everything's in your booth. You can spend that last 2 hours putting the grapes on the table and getting things chilled and open, but we usually expect to be set up. Now, most wineries can set up in a heartbeat.
Yep.
But I always love it if you can do a little powwow right before.
Absolutely. Having just 45 minutes to an hour before the actual events begin to talk to the breweries, to talk to the volunteers about this is how this is going to go.
Here's what these wristbands mean.
Yep.
If someone gets hurt, here's who you call. All those things are really important. So that setup is important. Invoicing the tastings for beer and wine, we talked about that in tickets. On-sale tickets, are you going to allow those? And if so, how are you going to have people pay for that? That's why the Wi-Fi is important.
Mm-hmm.
If they're buying wine there, most of the time they'll do be able to do that in their booth if you're doing it that way, and you'll need Wi-Fi for that. If you're doing a wine or beer store, you'll need to set that up in advance. Here's that pre-event powwow we talked about. Who's going to manage that door? That's something liquor control is really going to look at, is how you're making sure that someone's not walking away with a handful of wristbands and giving it to 19-year-olds or something. And who's going to manage that store, and how you're going to do those post of invoices. And then the biggest thing is, are you going to do it again?
Yeah.
Was the juice worth the squeeze? Did it make sense for them to, for all your volunteers and everyone to do this? And did you make enough and create enough relationships?
Right.
A couple supply things, wristbands. You can get those there's another sponsorship opportunity. I've seen
Absolutely.
people sell sponsorship on those wristbands, glasses, ice. Do you have a way to clean up broken glass? Bags to encourage that buying. Seating with the hay bales I mentioned. One of my wineries always forgets chargers, and that's how they're doing the sales. So having extra chargers is always a good idea. And here's just a few best practices for working with us.
Yeah, we get a lot of requests for donations to different auctions, to different events. I think you've said before that your wineries could easily give away
All the wine we make.
all the wine you make for all the donation requests there are. We could do just about the same with our beer. We would all prefer to donate a gift certificate or something that is going to bring them into our tap rooms,
Right.
into our tasting rooms,
Right.
so that they can come and have that experience with us.
Exactly. And a lot of them will decide in January what donations are going to make for the year.
Yep.
And so if you're thinking, well, I'm not going to do a tasting event this year, but we're going to do something where we'd like to do wine as a donated for a silent auction, most of them are going to decide as much of that early in the year. But there's other ways to work with wineries and breweries, including hosting events at that venue, at your tap room or our wineries.
We love hosting events at our tap room. We've done it several times already this year.
Right.
Christmas parties, just events for your company, whether it's just a little get together. We love having people come into our tap rooms and tasting rooms because that gives us the one-on-one contact where we can share our love for what we do.
Right. Including other partners or businesses. We love to promote other businesses in our area. So if you're looking for a caterer, let us know. We will suggest someone in our area that could help you with that we already have a proven relationship with. And then I mentioned earlier when the best time to contact them, and it is not Friday at 5 o'clock.
Or at 8 a.m.
There you go.
Yeah.
Don't call us then. We won't answer. So just in conclusion, tasting events are just a great way to draw visitors into your area or to an event and can be a great partnership.
Yeah, we love partnerships, especially with other local venues. We're always looking for ways to help out our community.
Right.
Again, communication. Everything depends on communication. We want to know early on, and we want to be able to help you promote it. So talk to us. We're more than willing to help, especially when we're attending.
Yep. I think that's just about it. We just hope that everyone will listen to this and hopefully be inspired to take the time to plan events that will be successful. I think the hardest thing is when we really want to help someone with an event and they let us know 2 weeks in advance.
Yep.
And it isn't because we're upset, we're just disappointed because those opportunities can be great for the whole area.
Yeah, and 2 weeks ahead, it doesn't give us enough time to actually participate.
Exactly.
And more often than not, we'd like to.
Right. But feel free to contact either one of us at any time. We'd be happy to help.
Yeah, absolutely. All right.
All right, thank you, Lori and Nathan. It's very informative, and I have some questions I want to ask you afterwards. But first, we're going to finish out the webinar with just letting everyone who is watching some of the upcoming events that will be taking place to finish this year out and then going into January. So if you see on your screen, the 16th of December is the deadline to put your application in to become a passport stop for the 2017 year. And you can send that in to Erin Worth, and you will find her information online if you Google for her. Her name is also erin.wirth@nebraska.gov if you want to send her an email. The 23rd is the deadline for any first quarter 2017 banner ads that you might want to be part of on our website. And then going into 2017, Karen Collars out in central Nebraska is going to be really busy. She oversees the National Western Stock Show, which takes place in Denver. And she asked me to mention that there is still volunteer days if you would like to volunteer and help her out. She has a slot there, and so just give her an email, and it's karen.collars@nebraska.gov, and you can find her online as well. And that is a fun show. I went there last year, and it was a great time. On January 12th, we will be participating with the Senators Luncheon, which is held at the Nebraska Capitol. Also on that day is the next Nebraska Tourism Commission meeting. And then on the 14th through the 17th, we will have a employee heading up to the the American Bus Association Marketplace up in Cleveland. And then on February 21st through the 23rd in Broken Bow will be the Agri-Ecotourism Workshop, and I've seen the agenda for some of that, and it looks like a good workshop is being planned. Registration for that is open right now, and so if you do plan to go for that, Jenna's shaking her head, it's not open.
It should be open later this week.
Okay, later this week. So plan on seeing that come through on probably a Neb Tour announcement, correct? Okay. So that takes us to the email. If you have questions that you would like to ask Nathan and Lori, you go ahead and send them in, and we are going to have them here sitting at the panel table with Jen as they filled questions in. So I want to start them off with, I wanted to say this. I used to be on, there's like 3 parts to this. There's you guys as a brewery or winery, there's who's ever hosting the event, and then there's the city or municipality who gives out the permit. I haven't said on your end, but I've said on the other 2. I used to give out the permits.
Oh, wow.
And so it's very interesting, and to hear you say these people need to get on the ball, because they do, and they need to research it, because we also will get permits from brides who want to have you come and be their, serve your beer at their reception. And we had one that actually missed out. She went through the process is you have to get it approved by the city council.
Right.
Or the county board, whoever you are working with. And there's a certain timeline, because they have to get it on their agenda, and of course their agenda has so many days that they have to post it. And then you go through that, it has to get approved, and then they turn it around and send it to the state, and they have to get it to the state by so many days. And this young gal, actually, there was a holiday in there, and didn't take that into account, and she lost out on serving alcohol at her wedding. And there's nothing that we could do, and nothing she could do. And so we looked at all different avenues. And so I guess I want to share with the people who are planning an event, get online and find out what you need to do. Call your city. They're so helpful. They'll give you the timeline, and they'll help you start working backwards. And then I had to, on social media, which was the gray area when I was doing this, we had an individual who would advertise his public event and invite everybody. And so there was no rule as far who could come at that time. And so the state was very helpful, because I had to call them many times to get clarification on what qualified and what didn't. And so it sounds like a big process, but I think there's people along the way who are very, very helpful.
And just to add to that, I think you make a really good point on the county or local level. Let's say their meetings every month is on the 10th of the month, and you go to them on the 11th. So you're not going to get on till the next month.
That's exactly right.
And that happens all the time. And they'll say, well, but my event isn't for 2 months. Well, you need a month in order to plan for your local municipality, and then you need to go to the state. You're right, those days exclude holidays, and that's why I mentioned as we head into the end of the year, there's a bunch of holidays. January, we've got Martin Luther King, which is a state holiday also. You miss things there. There's nothing wrong with having your SDLs all secured 90 days in advance of your event. That's your perfect scenario.
That's brilliant.
Yeah. And because you would hate to miss out on the opportunity, you probably already paid the venue, contacted the wineries, and you can't do the date because you couldn't get your SDL. And then if you have to reschedule it, you have to start that whole process over.
Right.
So, yeah, I know we talked about timing, do it in advance, but there's a reason, and thanks for mentioning a very specific example. And it doesn't just apply to our events. Getting an SDL for, for the social hall in a small town isn't that different. You will probably need that also, depending on if they hold their own liquor license or not.
Right. The second thing that I had come up working at Rose Sanctuary, where we were hosting an event with wine. And so we did all the SDL. But because in certain cities and counties, we had to have bartenders pour who were certified.
Yep.
And so therefore, we all had to go online and take a test, whereas in some other counties and cities don't require that. So that is also a thing, I think, that your event people who are putting on events need to be aware of, because they can't just call their employees to say, come and be our bartender.
They have to be certified. Now, you bring up a great point. One of the pieces of legislation that may be proposed in January is to require that training, like they do in Lincoln, actually.
Yep.
It's very specific and it's very regulated, and they're talking about having that be the same throughout the state. So you bring up a great point. Thank you for mentioning that, because that will impact everyone. But when I say having the organization have the pours, they have to be certified. It's an hour-long free training. I've done it. I'll have to do it again in January.
Yep.
But you will need that training. And it's also good because it's checking IDs and how to tell if you're over-serving someone. It's all good for liability.
Yep.
Yes, very good. So just things to be aware of if you're out there planning an event that you wouldn't even know. What you don't know is you don't know.
Right.
So anyway, so my first question and last then, Nathan, how many of you talk about the new permit will let you do 12 events?
Mm-hmm.
You can't do any more than that?
You can do more than that.
Can you? Okay.
The Liquor Control Commission will decide whether or not you can do more than 12.
Right.
Okay.
But it's a baseline that you start with, and then from there,
Okay.
you can ask for additional.
How many events do you normally do a year?
Well, we're fairly new to it, so right now we're trying to hit just about as many as we can. But I would say we probably try to do at least one. I'd say probably one a month.
One a
I mean,
month.
it averages
Nice.
out to,
Wow.
and that's everything from events at bars or events, festival type events, or doing things at our place as well.
Okay.
So
very
I
nice.
would say averages at least once a month.
Okay.
Yeah.
All right, well, we'll ask Jen if there's any questions.
Yeah, we got a handful or so. The first one person asking, as I'm understanding, it would be necessary to find an existing license holder to apply for the SDL.
Right now, you could have a nonprofit or an existing retail liquor license holder, either one. After the first of the year, it could change to be just a licensed retail holder. Ideally, but nonprofits right now can do that. Does that make sense?
Yeah, and I mean, finding one for your event, that could be a caterer that you're working with, it could be a bar or a brewery that you're working with, or a winery. But it varies.
Right.
We'll see how things change.
Right, and sometimes the venue will have their own license.
Yes.
So they wouldn't, they would secure it through their own license. But in many cases, they don't. If you're doing it at a park or an outdoor area, or even your state fairgrounds, they won't hold a permanent license, they'll have to apply for one.
Right.
And they had a follow-up to that. And so what would the holder be expected as being a partner with the liquor license when taking on the liability?
So they would have to pay for that, and they would be liable for the event. Now, that's why they've changed these SDLs, is they're trying to track the liability.
Yeah. Who's responsible?
Right. And so if we're not touching the alcohol, ultimately, the event would be responsible for that. But if they're looking for someone to go after, they'll go after anyone that holds a liquor license. So hopefully that answers the question.
We'll step away from the SDL now.
Okay.
A question that either of you can answer. What do you think is the best time of year to host one of these events?
Oh, geez, that could vary. I've been to great winter events and I've been to great summer events. My favorite events tend to be the more outdoor events, and I don't think that necessarily means you have to shy away from it just because it's cold out.
Right.
We do the brew is generally in April, and that's an iffy month in Nebraska. Like, is it going to be cool? Is it going to be nice? I think, God, I don't know if there's a specific time of year.
I will say that for us, for wineries, because our wineries have lots of Friday night, Saturday night music, from Labor Day or Memorial Day to Labor Day. If you get what we call shoulder months outside of that, they are probably more likely to have someone. But there is a festival or state, or I would say county fairs, kind of in that late June till early September. So if you want to get wineries to be there, I'd say avoid that a little bit. A lot of folks are doing more fall events, and those can be well received. And also, if you have an indoor venue, especially something that has something
Large
unique
festival.
and large, March, you need to just get out of the house, and have a glass of wine or
Go a
a
little
glass of beer.
stir-crazy at that point.
And so some of those March, early April events have become really popular.
Yeah. Another thing I would add that isn't necessarily brewery or winery related is be aware of the calendar in your area. I mean, what other events are going on? Are you gonna introduce a new event that's gonna overlap with something else? Be aware of what else is going on in your community and try to plan around that so that everybody works together.
And you can also leverage that.
Yeah.
We had a group that the opening of deer hunting season actually leveraged that to do I think it was the Deer Hunters Widows Ball. So it was for the women. But it was a great chance to, you're right, you want to stay away from things that you would compete with, but you also can sometimes leverage those for your benefit.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's a great idea. Some more like event-specific questions.
Yeah.
What do you do for contests at an event? Like example, if you did like a best of 2017 Toast Nebraska, how have you seen those run in the past?
Yeah, I have seen it where And it was a way to get everyone to go to all the booths, especially if there's unlimited sampling. But they give them a different colored ticket, just one of them, and then there's a little bucket at everyone's, and so they try them, and then they go back and decide who's they're going to give the best of, and then there was a little ceremony at the end. That was a fun way to kind of award something, and they had made a little medallion to hang over the bottle in their booth, and then they brought it the next year, and it was a neat way of creating consistency through another year of the project. But that's one way we've done it.
Yeah, the Nebraska Hop Cup is a great example. It happens at the Nebraska Brewing Company, and every year each brewery is producing a beer that's brewed with Nebraska grown hops. And you're given a ticket that allows you to vote on which one you think is the best, but you can also vote with dollars. So it's a combination, and that, again, it's
That
a
can be a good
fundraiser.
fundraiser,
Yeah. So you have your one ticket, but then also your dollars also have a big say in it as well. That's what I've typically seen done.
Yep. And then we've also seen silent auctions at events that aren't so much about selecting the best wine. But some of the trends in our industry are fortified wines, where you take your wine, you distill out a certain portion of it and bring it back into the wine, and it creates like a fortified wine or a dessert wine. Be careful with those. Those are 20% or more alcohol, but are really fun, different wines. And we had one where I had talked to someone from another state that had done, everyone was offered, whoever offered the fortified wines, you could decide the best of those. So they were trying to encourage folks to try something that was new, and it was in a category.
Yeah.
We've seen that done with hard cider and fruit wines and some of the differences. And you might want to explain what an extreme wine is, or extreme beer. Sorry, I'm so wine oriented.
Extreme beer fest. That's where you have either it's extreme in alcohol or hop level, or just in different flavors, whether it's a sour. That is a great way to get people to try out new things that breweries are doing, or wineries. A competition as part of the event is a great idea. It kind of the breweries like it too, because it's always nice to be like, well, we were the best of at this event.
Well, and I think too, people think, well, I've tried all the wines.
Yeah.
Or nothing's new here, and that's why we encourage folks to try some of those different kinds of products.
Yeah.
Open your mind.
Some more great ideas. Another question about food vendors. If you bring in food vendors, food trucks, do you have to worry about any special license for them?
They should be licensed on their own.
Yes.
In fact, I checked that they are, and they normally will post that on a window or a space in their food trucks. The biggest thing to worry about those guys is how much power they're pulling.
Yeah.
Because they blew out an entire festival I was at one time, all of the power, so no one could make any sales, you couldn't sell any tickets. So they had to have their own generator. So for food trucks, just be careful that they can plug. Now, they don't have to plug in, but if you have a 2-day event, they
They're
will.
gonna want to.
Yeah, so just make sure they're not plugging into your same power as other things.
Or again, just plan for it and ask them up front what kind of power they're going to need, so you can have your local government there help out with having the electrical available.
A great point, yeah.
A question specifically for you, Nathan. Growler refills, I know they're kind of questionable at breweries. What about at these kinds of events? Can you do anything like that?
I have not ever seen a growler refill being done at an event. I don't know. I've never seen it done. I don't think it's allowed.
Do you want to explain how it works from brewery to
What it
brewery?
is.
Oh, sure. A growler is usually a 64-ounce container. It can be a 64-ounce or a 32-ounce container. You usually purchase it at the brewery, and then you're able to bring it back in and have it refilled. We love it because there's less waste, and it's an opportunity to get people to come into our tap rooms.
Am I correct that if it's labeled by a certain brewery, you can only refill it at that brewery?
That's actually kind of a gray area. Some people adhere to that. The last conversation I had with the Liquor Control Commission is that no, that's not necessarily true. At our brewery, if you bring us a container, we want to sell you our beer, so we will fill it. It just has to have the Surgeon General's warning on it, and generally we'll put our sticker on it to mark that this is our beer that's going into this container.
You can't like put it in a big gulp or something.
No, generally discouraged.
Be fun to carry around.
Yeah.
I think this is our last question, unless I get any here in the next few minutes. Have you ever been to an event that does like a designated driver program?
Yeah.
And if so, how did it work? How did it go?
Yeah, we have done that at a number of our events. The ticket is usually very minimal, and it's just to have a cost so that you have everyone just doesn't come in on that way and then drink someone else with the wristbands. But normally they're about $10 if the other tickets are $25, and oftentimes they'll give them a coupon for a free food product or unlimited drinks
Right.
that are non-alcoholic.
Or it's a great sponsorship opportunity, again, having somebody sponsor the safe ride.
Yep.
You know,
We've had Ubers, we've asked Uber folks to come to some of
That's
our
a great
events
idea.
where they just kind of park it out front and they're able to kind of be there for rides to get people home. We love that because, just it creates an environment that says we care about our attendees being safe to get home.
absolutely.
All right, is there anything else you guys want to add before we wrap this up?
No, I don't think so. We just
No.
hope you enjoyed the presentation, what we had to share, and otherwise, please go out and enjoy some
Yeah.
Nebraska wine and some Nebraska beer.
Absolutely.
All right,
Thank
thanks
you.
for being with us.
You bet. Thank you.
Absolutely.